in 2012, when we got the rights to do Filmation characters in the Masters of the Universe Classic line, we were all really excited. There were villains and aliens and monsters and princesses and so many cool things to make. And honestly, at the top of our list was making a silly witch and her talking broomstick, because Madam Razz is a really important part of the franchise. I mean, she had a lot of screen time in the show. I mean, a lot. Some people calling her the Orko of the show, though I think that's more Cowl. I mean, she's the main character. She's right there in the lineup. I mean, oh wait, hold on. If I use this image, does that mean that Twigget at the far end has to be made? I guess so. All right, make it happen, Mattel. We need the Twigget from the lineup. The way we were able to get Madam Razz out was by including her in a special 6-month add-on subscription. While in previous years the add-on subs went the full year, for She-Ra's 30th anniversary, we were only able to get her out in the second half of the year, and I'm going to actually mention some of the production issues of why that's going to come up. There was a lot chugging along to try to get to this, so we finally decided just to push it to the tail end of the year instead of spreading it out every other month. So it started off, of course, with Light Hope, the first ever rendition of this, well, being in a toy form, even a personified humanesque form. Humanesque? Ghost form? I don't know what he is. He's a spirit. The point is, we wanted to use all these slots wisely, which is, of course, why we did a New Adventures She-Ra, because no one had ever heard of that before. More on that later. But yes, every spot was very sacred. It was about maximizing them, and we wanted to not only include Madam Razz, but the idea was to have her be the first figure in the lineup, because she was going to act as, the jelly bean, the bell cow. Okay, actually, the reason I'm showing jelly beans is because I use them to represent tooling. I don't know why, it works. So when you have tooling, you have to allocate that across enough figures to get your assortment. So here we had 6 figures to do. We had X amount of tooling to spread over that. Now, we knew Madam Razz was not a partial. Represents partial tooling. When you see the pink parts on the gray is an existing part. A good wave I used over and over again to illustrate this is the Beast Gambit wave from Marvel Legends. Beast was a fully tooled figure. All of the other figures, including the Build-A-Figure, were partial tooled figures. So by having less tooling for a character like Gambit, and yes, while Gambit does have some new pieces, a giant bulk of him comes from a previous release, the Spider-Man Noir figure. So by only having to do part of the figure versus all of it, you spend way less and get more selection. So anyway, that's why I use that one all the time. Madam Razz, we knew, was a fully tooled figure. There was no way around it, and she was a one and done. There were no reuses, no repaints. We were going to be lucky to get her to the market in the first place. And I knew that releasing Madam Razz without Broom, one, the price value, because she's a little shorter, but they go together. They're like, fireworks and Arbor Day. And again, we wanted to lead with her. We wanted her to be the first figure in the lineup, because that would attract people to the rest of them. And we were basically, blowing our tooling budget right up front. We knew that we weren't going to be able to afford much more, and we had to be economical with the rest of our choices. But it was worth it. We knew how important this character was. Fans were making customs. Again, huge main character, lots of screen time, comedy relief, kind of, the motherly character as well. And the problem was, though, wanting to do them both, Broom and Madam Razz. I mean, obviously, again, they go together, they fly together, they, clean together? Yes, they clean. Clearly, he's a broom. When you're running a line at a major toy company, you're allocated slots based on the revenue, and you have to use those slots very carefully over all of the brands. And if you allocate, too many slots to one brand, then you'll run out of slots on another brand for the portfolio that you manage. Now, sometimes you have multi-packs, right? Like, if you had Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger sold together, it would require 2 slots. This is exactly what we had when we did Masters of the Universe 2-packs, like the Horde Troopers or the Snake Men, or, any number of things in lots of brands. So 2 slots, 2 figures. Well, and I was looking at Madam Razz as, she's the figure, and she needs an accessory, and Broom was her accessory, and I worked very hard to preserve my slots. But unfortunately,
Shenanigans! Shenanigans! Shenanigans!
Yeah, there was a lot of disagreement, and I basically had to make the case that, no, Broom was not an individual figure, Broom was an accessory, and I came prepared. I did my homework, and I brought in a whole bunch of SKUs from the other side of the building, from the girls' side, and I said, look, here's a Barbie doll, and she comes with a bunch of pets. And hey, look, Monster High is doing the same thing. They have a whole thing this year where all of the Monster High girls all came with a, well, yeah, a dog or a cat or a walrus or, whatever. And they only counted as one SKU. And I was making the case that this is how the girls' side works. It should be equal for the boys' side. It is amazing how Mattel was like a junior high dance with literally boys on one side and girls on the other. I always thought that was so crazy, especially with all the equity that's talked about these days, but that's just the way it is. So, yes, I made my case. I brought in, comparable product and showed how, look, this is one SKU, Claudine Wolf and her, little puppy dog or wolf or whatever it is. But unfortunately, management disagreed, and they said that Broom was more like Gleek, that it's a character that could be sold by itself. For example, if we polybagged Broom, like we did with Gleek, we could have sold that or given it away at a convention. And I was like, well, yeah, but you could do that with Barbie's dogs too. But I really tried, because those slots are allocated based on sales, and it was really annoying being denied this because I had to use up one of the slots in order to keep Broom in the pack. Otherwise, we would have had to remove Broom and found some other way to release him, and that just wasn't going to happen. So, yeah, those precious, precious slots, man, it's tough having one taken away from you because you have to use it for what you thought was going to be an accessory and turns out to be an action figure, or at least was considered a two-pack by management. But, hey, we got Madam Razz out there with Broom, and that's what counts. And, this was one of those figures you kind of never thought you were going to get to do. So, it was awesome. I'm glad we got to do her, even if it required giving up a slot just to give her Broom. Hey, Broom's awesome.